The summer of 2011 started like any other for the Brooks family from Cedar Rapids, Iowa. Olivia Brooks, a vibrant 28-year-old elementary school teacher with auburn hair and an infectious laugh, had been planning her solo vacation to the Pacific Northwest for months. Her parents, Robert and Linda Brooks, had initially worried about their daughter traveling alone, but Olivia had always been independent and adventurous. She had saved every penny from her teaching salary to afford the 2-week trip through Oregon and Washington, dreaming of hiking trails, visiting coastal towns, and finding inspiration for her classroom lessons about American geography. If you're following along with this story, please take a moment to subscribe to our channel and let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We love hearing from viewers around the world. Now let's continue with Olivia's mysterious disappearance. On July 15, 2011, Olivia kissed her parents goodbye at the Cedar Rapids airport, her navy blue rolling suitcase packed with hiking boots, rain gear, and the digital camera she'd received for her birthday. She was scheduled to fly to Portland, Oregon, where she would pick up a rental car and begin her carefully planned itinerary. The last confirmed contact anyone had with Olivia was a cheerful text message she sent to her best friend, Jessica Martinez, from the Portland airport at 3:47 p.m. Pacific time. "Made it safely. The mountains are gorgeous from the plane. Can't wait to explore. Love you." Robert Brooks, a retired machinist with calloused hands and worry lines that deepened with each passing year, still kept that text message screenshot on his phone 14 years later. He would often stare at it during sleepless nights, wondering what happened in those crucial hours after Olivia collected her rental car, a silver Toyota Corolla that was found abandoned 3 days later in the parking lot of Crater Lake National Park, over 280 miles from Portland. The initial investigation, led by the Jackson County Sheriff's Office in Oregon, revealed that Olivia had checked into the Crater Lake Lodge on July 16th, paying for a 3-night stay with her credit card. The hotel staff remembered her as polite and excited, asking about the best hiking trails and photography spots. Security footage showed her leaving the lodge at approximately 8:30 a.m. on July 17th, wearing a red fleece jacket, dark jeans, and carrying a small day pack. She never returned. Search and rescue teams combed the rugged terrain around Crater Lake for weeks. The area, known for its stunning blue waters surrounded by steep cliffs and dense forests, could be treacherous even for experienced hikers. Volunteers from across Oregon joined the effort, including members of the Pacific Crest Trail Association and local climbing clubs. Linda Brooks, a soft-spoken librarian who had never been west of Nebraska before her daughter's disappearance, flew to Oregon and spent 2 months coordinating with searchers, posting flyers, and pleading with local media to keep Olivia's story in the news. The terrain around Crater Lake presented numerous challenges. The park encompassed 183,224 acres of wilderness, with elevation changes from 4,000 to 8,929 feet. Dense forests of mountain hemlock and Shasta red fir created natural barriers, while hidden ravines and steep drop-offs posed constant dangers. Weather conditions in July 2011 had been particularly unpredictable, with afternoon thunderstorms rolling in without warning, creating flash flooding in normally dry creek beds. Detective Marcus Rivera of the Jackson County Sheriff's Office became the lead investigator on Olivia's case. A 20-year veteran with experience in missing persons cases, Rivera approached the investigation methodically. He interviewed every staff member at Crater Lake Lodge, examined Olivia's rental car thoroughly, and traced her credit card and cell phone records. Her phone had last pinged a cell tower near the park's Rim Drive at 9:15 a.m. on July 17th, then went silent. The lack of additional credit card activity suggested either an accident in a remote location or something more sinister. Rivera's investigation revealed that Olivia had withdrawn $300 in cash from an ATM at the lodge on July 16th, unusual for someone who typically used credit cards for all purchases. Hotel staff mentioned that she had asked detailed questions about less crowded hiking trails, specifically inquiring about areas where she could photograph wildlife without disturbing other visitors. This information led search teams to focus on more remote sections of the park, including the Pinnacles area and the less traveled portions of the Pacific Crest Trail that pass through the park. As weeks turned to months, the intensive search efforts gradually scaled back, though never officially ended. The Brooks family hired a private investigator, Thomas Kellerman, a former FBI agent who specialized in missing persons cases. Kellerman's approach differed from the local authorities. He focused on the possibility that Olivia's disappearance might not be accidental. He investigated whether she might have encountered someone with malicious intent, examining similar cases in the Pacific Northwest and interviewing transients and seasonal workers who had been in the area during July 2011. The emotional toll on the Brooks family was devastating. Robert began drinking heavily, unable to concentrate at his part-time job at a local hardware store. Linda threw herself into advocacy work, connecting with other families of missing persons and pushing for better coordination between state and federal agencies in search and rescue operations. Their marriage strained under the weight of grief and uncertainty, with heated arguments about whether to continue searching or begin accepting that Olivia might never be found. The couple attended counseling sessions, but the constant unknown ate away at their relationship like acid on metal. Jessica Martinez, Olivia's best friend since college, became an unofficial spokesperson for the family. She organized annual memorial walks in Cedar Rapids, maintained a Facebook page dedicated to finding Olivia, and corresponded regularly with other families dealing with similar disappearances. Jessica, who worked as a nurse at Mercy Medical Center, often found herself comforting the Brooks family during their darkest moments, though she struggled with her own grief and guilt about encouraging Olivia to take the solo trip. The case generated significant media attention throughout Iowa and Oregon during the first year. Nancy Grace featured Olivia's story on her television program, and several true crime podcasts examined the case in detail. However, as is often the case with missing persons investigations, public interest gradually waned without new developments. Detective Rivera continued working the case, following up on occasional tips and reported sightings, but none led to substantial breakthroughs. One particularly promising lead emerged in September 2011 when a hiker reported finding a red fleece jacket matching Olivia's description near the Watchman Peak Trail. However, DNA testing revealed it belonged to another missing hiker from 2009, highlighting the tragic frequency of disappearances in the region's vast wilderness areas. This discovery only added to the family's frustration and despair, as it seemed every potential clue led to disappointment. The investigation also explored the possibility that Olivia had chosen to disappear voluntarily. Detective Rivera examined her financial records, employment history, and personal relationships for signs of depression, debt, or other problems that might motivate someone to start a new life elsewhere. However, everyone who knew Olivia described her as happy, stable, and deeply committed to her students and family. Her savings account contained modest funds. She had no significant debts, and she had recently signed a contract to teach 4th grade at her elementary school for the upcoming year. As 2011 turned to 2012, the Brooks family faced the agonizing decision of whether to hold a memorial service without a body. Linda wanted closure and a place to grieve, while Robert insisted they shouldn't give up hope. The compromise was a celebration of life ceremony held on Olivia's 29th birthday in March 2012, attended by over 200 people from the Cedar Rapids community. Students from her school performed songs and shared artwork they had created in her memory, bringing both comfort and renewed anguish to her parents. The years that followed brought occasional developments but no resolution. In 2014, a skull found by hunters in southern Oregon generated brief hope, but dental records confirmed it belonged to a male victim from decades earlier. A 2016 tip from a woman claiming to have seen Olivia working at a diner in Montana proved false after investigation. Each false lead reopened wounds that never fully healed, keeping the family trapped in a cycle of hope and despair. Detective Rivera retired in 2018, but not before ensuring that Olivia's case files were comprehensive and accessible to his successor, Detective Amanda Walsh. Walsh, a younger officer with fresh eyes and experience with cold cases, reviewed every piece of evidence and interview transcript. She noted that advances in DNA technology and digital forensics might offer new opportunities to solve cases from 2011, when such tools were less sophisticated. Throughout the intervening years, the Brooks family aged visibly under the strain. Robert's hair turned completely grey, and he developed a slight tremor in his hands that his doctor attributed to stress and alcohol abuse. Linda became involved with the National Missing and Unidentified Persons System, helping to catalogue cases and advocate for better resources. She often spoke at conferences about the secondary victims of disappearances, the families left behind to navigate a criminal justice system not designed for cases without bodies or clear evidence of crimes. The community of Cedar Rapids never forgot Olivia Brooks. Her former principal, Margaret Foster, established a scholarship fund in her name for students pursuing careers in education. The fund raised money through annual 5K runs and silent auctions, ensuring that Olivia's passion for teaching would continue inspiring others. Local news stations ran anniversary stories each July, keeping her disappearance in public consciousness and occasionally generating new tips for investigators. Social media played an increasingly important role in keeping Olivia's case active. Jessica Martinez maintained Instagram and Facebook accounts dedicated to the search, sharing age progression photos created by the National Center for Missing Adults. These digital platforms connected the Brooks family with other families facing similar tragedies, creating a support network that spanned the country. Online true crime communities also adopted Olivia's case, with amateur investigators analyzing maps, weather data, and witness statements in forums and Facebook groups. By 2020, as the COVID-19 pandemic disrupted daily life across America, the Brooks family had settled into a painful routine of anniversary remembrances and occasional updates from law enforcement. Robert had quit drinking with the help of Alcoholics Anonymous and was working part-time as a volunteer coordinator for the local chapter of the Missing Persons Network. Linda had written a book about their experience titled Still Searching, A Mother's Journey Through the Unknown, which provided both therapeutic outlet and advocacy tool for other families. The pandemic paradoxically brought some unexpected connections to their story. With more people hiking and exploring outdoor spaces during lockdowns, several cold cases from national parks received renewed attention. The National Park Service launched a social media campaign featuring unsolved disappearances, including Olivia's case, hoping that increased visibility might generate new leads. The campaign reached millions of people through platforms like TikTok and Instagram, introducing Olivia's story to a generation that had been children when she disappeared. In late 2024, Detective Walsh received additional resources to form a cold case task force specifically focused on missing persons cases in Oregon's wilderness areas. The task force included representatives from the FBI's Behavioral Analysis Unit, the National Park Service, and several county sheriff's offices. They began systematically reviewing cases from the past 20 years, using new technology to analyze cell phone data, satellite imagery, and geographic profiling techniques that hadn't existed in 2011. The task force's work gained urgency when they identified patterns, suggesting that several disappearances in Oregon's Cascade Range might be connected. While each case had unique circumstances, the geographic clustering and similar victim profiles raised questions about whether a serial perpetrator might be responsible. This possibility, though terrifying for families involved, offered hope that solving one case might unlock others. As 2025 began, the Brooks family had learned to live with uncertainty while never abandoning hope. Robert, now 72, had developed a philosophy he shared with other parents of missing children. You can't live in the past, but you can't forget it either. You have to find a way to honor your loved one while still having a life. Linda, 69, had become a national advocate, testifying before Congress about the need for better coordination between agencies investigating missing persons cases. Their advocacy work had real impact. The Brooks family's efforts contributed to the passage of state legislation requiring faster response times for missing adult cases and better information sharing between jurisdictions. They also pushed for improved training for search and rescue volunteers and standardized protocols for evidence collection in wilderness areas. These changes couldn't bring Olivia back, but they might help other families avoid their prolonged anguish. The couple had also found ways to maintain connection with their missing daughter. They visited Oregon every year on the anniversary of her disappearance, hiking different trails in Crater Lake National Park and leaving flowers at scenic overlooks. These pilgrimages served as both memorial and continued search, as they always carried recent photographs of Olivia and spoke with other hikers about their daughter's case. Park rangers had come to know them personally, and often provided updates about ongoing search efforts and new developments in similar cases. Spring arrived early in Oregon in 2025, with unusually warm weather melting snow at higher elevations weeks ahead of schedule. The accelerated snowmelt created ideal conditions for backcountry exploration, as trails that normally remained inaccessible until late June opened to hikers in early May. This phenomenon, while concerning to climatologists studying climate change effects, proved fortuitous for an unexpected discovery that would finally provide answers to the Brooks family's 14-year search. On May 18, 2025, a group of experienced backcountry hikers from Portland set out to explore a remote area near Mount Bailey, approximately 40 miles northeast of Crater Lake. The team, led by retired geology professor Dr. Catherine Thornton, was conducting research for a book about volcanic formations in the Cascade Range. They had obtained special permits to access areas typically closed to public hiking, including several locations that had been thoroughly searched during the initial investigation into Olivia's disappearance. The group included Dr. Thornton's graduate student Michael Chen, wildlife photographer David Kim, and local guide Patricia Patty Reynolds, who had been leading backcountry expeditions in Oregon for over 30 years. Reynolds had actually participated in some of the searches for Olivia in 2011, though she didn't immediately recognize the significance of what they were about to discover. The team was well equipped with GPS devices, satellite communicators, and emergency supplies, planning a 3-day survey of geological features in an area affected by historical landslides. On their second day, while photographing a rock formation near a seasonal creek bed, David Kim noticed something unusual, partially buried under accumulated debris from recent snowmelt. The object appeared to be fabric, but its color and texture seemed inconsistent with typical camping or hiking gear left behind by careless visitors. Kim called the others over, and Dr. Thornton immediately recognized that they might be looking at something significant for law enforcement rather than geology. The object was the corner of a navy blue rolling suitcase, its handle and wheels still partially visible despite being buried under rocks, fallen branches, and 14 years of accumulated forest debris. Patty Reynolds felt a chill of recognition. She had heard detailed descriptions of Olivia Brooks's luggage during the search briefings in 2011. The group immediately stopped their exploration and used their satellite communicator to contact the Jackson County Sheriff's Office, carefully marking the GPS coordinates and establishing a perimeter around the discovery site. Detective Amanda Walsh received the call at 3:22 p.m. and immediately contacted the Oregon State Police and FBI field office in Portland. The location where the suitcase was found lay approximately 12 miles northeast of where Olivia's rental car had been discovered, in terrain that had been searched multiple times during 2011, but never with the thoroughness that recent discoveries would reveal was necessary. The area was accessible only by foot, requiring a strenuous 6-mile hike through dense forest and across several steep ravines. Within hours, a joint recovery team was assembled, including Detective Walsh, FBI evidence specialists, County Medical Examiner Dr. Sarah Liu, and Search and Rescue Coordinator Captain James Morrison. The team hiked to the site using headlamps and portable generators to establish a proper crime scene perimeter before darkness fell. They set up a base camp nearby and posted guards overnight to preserve the integrity of the discovery site until full excavation could begin the following morning. Dr. Liu, who had experience with remains recovered from wilderness settings, explained to Detective Walsh that the rocky, partially sheltered location where the suitcase was found could potentially preserve both organic and inorganic evidence far longer than exposure to direct weather would normally allow. The seasonal creek had apparently changed course multiple times over the years, sometimes covering the area with protective sediment, and sometimes exposing it to air and moisture. This natural preservation cycle offered hope that the suitcase contents might provide crucial evidence about Olivia's disappearance. The excavation began at dawn on May 19th, with FBI evidence technicians carefully removing debris layer by layer while photographing and cataloging every item discovered. The suitcase itself was remarkably well preserved, its hard-shell construction having protected the contents from complete deterioration. When finally opened under controlled conditions, it contained clothing, toiletries, and personal items that were immediately recognizable as belonging to someone who had packed for a hiking vacation. Most significantly, the suitcase contained Olivia's digital camera, wrapped in a plastic bag that had provided additional protection from moisture. FBI digital forensics specialists were able to recover most of the images stored on the camera's memory card, providing the first new evidence in the case since 2011. The photographs showed Olivia's journey from the Portland airport to Crater Lake, including images of her rental car, the lodge where she stayed, and several scenic locations around the park. The final photographs on the camera, taken on the morning of July 17, 2011, showed Olivia hiking alone on what appeared to be a trail near Crater Lake's rim. The metadata indicated the photos were taken between 9:45 and 10:30 a.m., providing the first concrete evidence of her activities after leaving the lodge. More importantly, careful analysis of the backgrounds in these final images allowed FBI experts to identify the specific location where they were taken, a remote section of trail approximately 3 miles from where the suitcase was ultimately discovered. Detective Walsh immediately organized a focused search of the area where the final photographs were taken. Using ground-penetrating radar and cadaver dogs, the team spent several days systematically exploring the terrain between the photo location and the suitcase discovery site. The rugged landscape included several areas where someone could easily lose their footing, particularly during the afternoon thunderstorms that had been common in July 2011. On May 23, 2025, search teams made the discovery that would finally provide closure to the Brooks family. Olivia's remains were found in a deep ravine approximately halfway between the photo location and her suitcase, in an area that had been completely obscured by fallen trees and landslide debris until recent storms had shifted the landscape. The position of the remains and surrounding evidence suggested that she had fallen from a trail above, possibly during a sudden weather event or while attempting to photograph wildlife in a dangerous location. Dr. Liu's examination of the remains, while limited by their exposure to the elements over 14 years, showed no evidence of foul play. The injuries were consistent with a fall from significant height onto rocky terrain. Personal items found with the remains, including Olivia's distinctive turquoise bracelet and hiking boots, confirmed the identification even before DNA analysis could be completed. Her day pack was discovered nearby, containing water bottles, energy bars, and trail maps that matched the supplies she had purchased at the Crater Lake Lodge. The investigation revealed that Olivia had apparently ventured off the established trail system, possibly following an animal path or seeking a better vantage point for photography. The area where she fell had no safety barriers and would have been particularly treacherous during wet conditions. Weather records from July 17, 2011 showed that severe thunderstorms had moved through the region between 11 a.m. and 2 p.m., creating dangerous conditions that could have contributed to her accident. Detective Walsh faced the difficult task of calling Robert and Linda Brooks with news they had both hoped for and dreaded for 14 years. The phone call, made on the evening of May 23rd, provided the answers they had desperately sought while confirming their worst fears about their daughter's fate. Robert later described the conversation as the hardest and most important call I've ever received, bringing both devastation and relief after years of not knowing. The Brooks family traveled to Oregon one final time, not as searchers, but as mourners finally able to grieve properly. They met with Detective Walsh, Dr. Liu, and the hiking team who had discovered Olivia's suitcase, expressing profound gratitude for their dedication and professionalism. The family also visited the location where Olivia's remains were found, finding it to be a peaceful spot, surrounded by the natural beauty she had traveled so far to experience. A memorial service was held at Crater Lake National Park on June 15, 2025, attended by family, friends, law enforcement officials, and dozens of search and rescue volunteers who had never stopped hoping for resolution. Park Ranger Captain Susan Martinez, who had coordinated many of the original search efforts, spoke about Olivia's case, highlighting the importance of wilderness safety and the dedication of those who risk their lives searching for missing persons. The discovery of Olivia's remains and belongings also provided closure for the broader community that had followed her case for over a decade. Jessica Martinez organized a final memorial walk in Cedar Rapids, celebrating Olivia's life and thanking the hundreds of volunteers who had participated in searches, fundraisers, and awareness campaigns over the years. The Olivia Brooks Scholarship Fund continued operating, having already provided assistance to 12 students pursuing teaching careers. For the Brooks family, the resolution brought both peace and renewed purpose. Robert and Linda established a foundation focused on improving wilderness safety education and search and rescue capabilities in national parks. They worked with the National Park Service to develop better trail marking systems and emergency communication options for remote hiking areas. Their advocacy helped secure funding for additional search and rescue resources in Oregon and other states with similar terrain challenges. The case also contributed to important changes in how missing persons investigations are conducted in wilderness areas. The discovery that Olivia's remains lay relatively close to heavily searched areas highlighted the limitations of traditional search methods in complex terrain. The Jackson County Sheriff's Office implemented new protocols using drones, satellite imagery, and advanced GPS mapping to ensure more comprehensive coverage of search areas. Dr. Thornton's hiking group, whose geological survey had led to the breakthrough discovery, received recognition from both the Oregon State Police and the National Missing Persons Network. Their careful handling of the crime scene and immediate notification of authorities became a model for training civilians who might encounter evidence in wilderness settings. The group continued their geological research, but also became advocates for responsible backcountry recreation and missing persons awareness. The resolution of Olivia Brooks's disappearance resonated throughout the true crime community that had followed her case online for years. Her story became a case study in the importance of never giving up on missing persons investigations and the role that technological advances can play in solving cold cases. The successful recovery of digital evidence from her camera 14 years after her disappearance demonstrated the value of preserving all potential evidence, even when initial analysis proves inconclusive. As the Brooks family finally laid their daughter to rest in Cedar Rapids on July 17, 2025, exactly 14 years after her disappearance, they reflected on the long journey from devastating loss to painful resolution. Linda Brooks spoke at the funeral about the hundreds of people who had helped search for Olivia, from professional investigators to volunteer searchers to online advocates who kept her story alive. She emphasized that while they couldn't bring Olivia back, they could ensure her legacy included improved safety and search capabilities that might save other families from similar ordeals. The story of Olivia Brooks serves as a reminder of both the dangers inherent in wilderness recreation and the dedication of those who never stop searching for answers. Her case highlighted the importance of proper preparation for backcountry activities, the value of emergency communication devices, and the need for comprehensive search protocols that account for complex terrain and changing environmental conditions over time. In the months following the discovery and funeral, the Brooks family worked with documentary filmmakers and true crime authors to ensure Olivia's story was told accurately and constructively. They insisted that any media coverage emphasize wilderness safety education rather than sensationalizing the mystery aspects of her disappearance. Their goal was to honor Olivia's memory while potentially preventing similar tragedies through improved awareness and preparation. The foundation established in Olivia's name continued growing, funding wilderness safety education programs in schools across Iowa and Oregon. The organization also provided grants for search and rescue equipment and training, ensuring that future missing persons cases would benefit from the lessons learned during the long search for Olivia Brooks. Her story had transformed from a mystery into a catalyst for positive change, exactly as her parents had hoped when they first began their 14-year journey toward answers and closure.